So yeah, to kick things off, I do start with the same boring ass question every single time. Who are you, and kind of a little background on yourself?
My name is Hayley Cain or Hayley Crusher Cain. I am a known eccentric musician and writer from California who is now living in Detroit, Rock City, a beautiful motor city. And I'm from the band Hayley and the Crushers. I formed that band in around 2016, and I am a guitar player and singer for that band with my husband slash bass player slash rat dog dad, Dr. Reed Kane Esquire, who is the world's most famous fake doctor and fake lawyer. My parents are very proud. We have a traveling band of drummers that we consider our honorary crushers who enliven our lives, and we take them on the road and we somehow pull out a bunch of shows and we tour. And did I mention we have small dogs? We have small dogs.
Yeah,
I think that's kind of like a nice, well-rounded
yeah,
intro on me.
yeah, for sure. And I think it's funny you mentioned that your husband is the world's most famous fake doctor and lawyer, because every quote unquote every stereotypical parent's dream is that you marry up into that like doctor and lawyer field. So why not, right?
Right. I really lucked out. So, if in case anyone cares about the name and where he got that from, because when you see him live, he's a very fun bass player, and people really enjoy his like speed and agility, and he jumps. He's also kind of mean looking. He got his name from when he lived in Oakland in the 90s, and he used to go to a comic book store called Mr. Comics, Dr. Comics and Mr. Games. He used to actually work there briefly. And then when he moved to San Luis Obispo, California, which is where the two of us met for the first
Hmm.
time, he opened his own comic book store, which he called Dr. Kane's Comics and Games, a sort of an homage to that comic book store he loved from Oakland. And he always said that would be his villain name, Dr. Kane, because his last name is Kane.
Yeah.
And so the Esquire, I don't know where the Esquire came on, but I feel like it just adds a mystique. And he still to this day refuses to let me put his real name on any record, on any CD, like anything that has to do with the music. He's Dr. Kane Esquire and should be referred to as such.
Yeah. Hey, you got to take it.
Yeah, he's
Anything that sets you aside, especially in the genre, which I want to talk about a lot with you.
sure.
Um, you know, it's easy to get lumped into the general punk scene, like, but there's so much more depth to this. It's this, as your PR team has been calling it, and I'm sure you had a hand in this. It's this poolside glitter punk, but it's this very like retro nostalgia feeling punk with so much new life to it that like it's hard to compare you to any one band without downplaying what you are.
That's really kind. Thank you so much. We like to say it's like, Richard Simmons used to sweat to the oldies. Like we add a little oldies into our punk and it just adds a little bit extra caffeine to it.
Yeah.
Um, I feel like like when you say that it's easy to get lumped into punk, I find that interesting because one, I would say if you're a lot of people that are into punk, like even like really into all the subgenres would be like, no way. But I think you're 100% correct when it comes to like different areas where maybe the punk scene is very like one dimensional. And I come from
Hmm.
California where the punk scene is so interdimensional. Like, for instance, one of my favorite bands growing up was always X, which combines Americana music, rockabilly music, hardcore music, uh, early, I mean, they were an early 77 punk band or original
Right.
punk band. Like, they add so much weird shit. They got saxophone in there somehow. And the way that I've always seen punk, I think, is from the lens of a Californian,
Right.
and to see like the surf music infused into it or the oldies music infused into it and all that,
Yeah.
so I come from a kind of an eclectic view of punk, and when I first got into punk, my guitar teacher thankfully gave me so many different things at once. He wouldn't let me because I was like, I only want to play Ramones, Operation Ivy, and Screeching Weasel songs. And he said, here's some James Brown, here's some Clash.
Yeah.
He was like giving me all these different windows into it. And now that I'm an adult and I can look at just the things that you get into when you're a kid and the first things you get into, I'm like, okay, yeah, he had a point there. Like there's such a big, it's just a planet. There's a
Hmm.
punk planet out there, and it's just like populated with so many different things to just, get your fix. So I agree and I disagree with that.
Yeah. No, and I totally respect that. And I think the thing is, so many people, I'm going to sound so old, especially
I'm
the
old.
young kids, they, you hear punk and you're like, immediately your mind goes to a couple different places. And I hate to say MGK right now, but like, obviously for the younger generation, that's kind of where their mind goes with his latest album. And it's like, but to me, punk has always been similar to you. It's anything that's been kind of counterculture, right? Like anything that's going against the grain and talking about rebellion to some extent, but just stepping outside of the normal, like that's
Yeah,
what punk music is we're not the normal kids. Look at what we all can be.
right. Like I think there's an opportunity for any one of us, even like the most white bread of any age, to go their own way. But you're right, it's usually the youth that are the ones that are going to be the first to do that. And I feel like maintaining that energy as someone who's in my mid 30s now, it's kind of funny because yeah, I don't even know where I'm going with this, but just it's just it's really just, expressing yourself is scary, I think, for any human being. And for those who do it, they're punk. If you're a drag
Right.
queen, you're punk. If you are just really nerdy and really into like making model trains and you're just fucking down for it, that's punk. And I've
Yeah.
gotten to this point where I realize like, oh, that's literally all it is. And like I think that it's nice to have that as like throughout my life as almost like a religion. I didn't grow up with religion. I was raised with parents that are both staunchly atheist and almost very, very atheist. Sorry guys, but very to the point where I was like, do we have to get eaten by worms? Like I don't know. And so having some sort of church, religion, whatever you want to call it, where like there's something beyond you that's worth working towards. And that thing is like self-expression and freedom and pure energy, just pure, I don't know, joy. Like I see punk and I think of joy. Like
Yeah.
joy can be a very off the beaten path thing to pursue in life. A lot of people are not pursuing joy.
Yeah.
So yeah, it is almost like having that just like omnipresent, like good force. Like it's definitely a force of self-destruction.
Yes.
I always say punk rock simultaneously destroyed and saved my life. And it's 100% true. Both of these are true.
Yeah. No, I totally agree. And that's what I've said similarly with, you know, the assumption is punk rock is anti establishment and it's all these anti things. It's about breaking everything down. But, like, for those of us that are in the punk culture, sure, at the surface level, it's about rebelling, but it's really about all of us coming together and just being unapologetically ourselves and like to
Building.
yeah, and that's what I was going to say, building the individuality and the human beings instead of the structure of a government or whatever.
Yeah, like what came to mind when you were saying that was just like, instead of tearing things down, it's about what do you want? What are you going to build? There's
Right.
this great little spot near my house. It's like a little book co-op. It's a bunch of volunteers that got together, and now they have this amazing bookstore that's run by volunteers. They're very passionate. I mean, I see that as like a way to build the future you want. When you see small venues that are put together by people that are really passionate and care about the bands and care about the environment they're putting together, that's amazing. That's building, making, I wanted to say making zines, which I used to do, but maybe that's too old, but like making anything really. And I don't think it's defined just to like, but bass, drums, and guitar. In fact, that's
Right.
not even like, that's oldies. Um,
Hmm.
there's been a huge shift away from rock based music. And when I say rock, I get that. It's fine. But in some ways, it makes me stand out. It makes bands like mine that are a simple, kind of simple trio, honestly, in real life.
Yeah.
Real concerts are not as lush and layered as the records. And just banging on shit and, having three chords played in a different succession than yesterday is kind of like, what we do.
Yeah. No, and I think that's the beauty again of punk rock is that, whether it's the the polished side of an album or the live show. Like, you can do all these really cool things for an album and build this big grand sound, but at the end of the day, when you're playing it live, even if it is stripped down to just three core instruments, like, the message is what delivers punk rock.
Yeah. Yeah, we carry that philosophy into our gear too, where we like laugh and say we only play on borrowed or shitty gear, but it's not necessarily that glib. It's more just like we have kind of shitty gear. We treat gear as a tool, and we feel like if it's a hammer, then it should just put the nail on the wall. So we do have good pedals that we bring, for instance, on tour, so we can borrow people's amps and go like, do you have a clean channel? Great, because I have the perfect, either for Dr. Cain, it's a fuzzy bass, and I have a Danelectro spring reverb pedal that makes it sound like I have this beautiful, gorgeous, wet reverb on it.
Yeah.
And it somehow kind of works out. And like, I just feel like that philosophy can kind of go towards so much in life. Like, it's about the heart, the soul, the energy you put into something so much more. It's like 5% gear. It's like 5% what your gear is. And the bands that are really obsessed with their gear or are really weird, I get it, because hey, their gear is expensive. They don't want it to get fucked up. But I feel like there's a direct correlation between having the best gear in the world and being like a total douchebag and or being frightened. Like, why do you need this? Like, you don't need it. It's a tool. It's like a drill, you know?
Yep.
That's how we see it anyways. But that's a very punk and very utilitarian way to look at music. I know I'm like probably in the minority in terms of like musicians, but that's how I feel about it.
See, you say that, but as you described all that, what came to mind, there was a documentary thing that Jack White was a part of back a few years ago called "It's Gonna Get Loud" or "This Is Loud," something like that. And he literally makes a guitar out of a set of pickups, a 2x4, and a glass Coke bottle for this to be the bridge for the strings. Like, and it's the most incredible sounding makeshift guitar, but it goes to prove your point. Like, at the end of the day, the equipment itself doesn't matter. It's the passion that drives the music.
Yeah, I mean, look at all. I mean, everything in rock and roll came from blues musicians, blues musicians, and what did they have?
Yeah.
You know, they had like the crummiest shit that they put together, or even some good quality stuff that maybe was passed down from generations. But like, yeah, I think it's really about the spirit. It's really about the spirit, and you can tell pretty quickly when someone doesn't have the spirit, because that's the hardest part. The hardest part is maintaining that kind of a spirit through all the shit that happens as a musician, on stage, off stage, all the work involved. It's like, if you can keep that rock and roll spirit alive with whatever shitty gear you have, you're my friend. Like, I get it, you know?
Yeah. Yeah, no, and I think that's the thing is, you can fake. This is going to sound weird for maybe a casual listener, but you can fake talent. And that sounds really weird because,
no, you can. Yeah.
Because, well, inherently the word talent means you're born with it. But, like, you can fake being able to play something really good. But you can't fake authenticity and passion. There's no way to fake that.
Yeah, that's right. And if authenticity and passion are the currency, then I think the Ramones are the blueprint, because they certainly were an amazing example of that for so many bands that realized that if they had the drive and the energy and the point of view, perhaps the rest of it could follow. So we definitely, in this new album, it's called Modern Adult Kicks, we've definitely tried to we have elevated like the orchestration and adding different layers and working with different people that have been able to polish different parts of our sound and bring in different counter melodies and things like that. But yeah, once you get on stage, all that shit falls away. Unless, of course, you have like in-ear monitors and your drummer's playing to a click track and you got all this crazy shit happening and there's like lasers, which I would love to do one day. I would love to be part of a show that's like, we always joke, it's like the Alan Jackson show, where like he'll be like, hey guys, how's it going? And he'll do like 2 chords and then the guitar goes behind his back and he just starts singing along the music. And it's like, there's fiddle coming from somewhere, but there's no fiddle on stage. And like, I would love to do it as an experience. And I've actually seen a few modern day bands recently that I'm like, okay, that was actually pretty cool. And it's obvious they had it all orchestrated behind the scenes. They had a laptop on stage. that's kind of fun as like a theatrical thing. Like
Right.
one of these days, I do want to try that, but we'll see if I actually eat my words because it's a little chaotic for me up here. So we'll see if I can handle it.
And it's one of those things, you know, technology is great while it works. But you know, God forbid that laptop dies, or you know, something
Yeah.
happens to the track and it skips, and now you're standing there looking like Millie Vanilli, going, "I don't know what the fuck just happened." So here we are.
Yeah, listeners, depending on your age group, it's either Millie Vanilli or Ashley Simpson
There you go. Yeah,
doing like the SNL gig or jig where she's like, ooh, and she runs off stage. I thought that was
yeah,
the funniest thing.
yeah.
Oh my God. I would love, you know what? That should be incorporated into our stage show. We should pretend like we have it, the orchestration, and then my voice will come on and it'll skip and I'll just look
Right.
really embarrassed. You heard it here
Yeah.
first. I'm doing it. That
We're
sounds
designing
amazing.
it. Yeah, we're
That's
designing it. Let's do this.
that's so fucking funny. If I saw a band do that, I would be like their fan forever because that's hilarious and so embarrassing.
Yeah, yeah. So you just kind of touched on the new album coming out this fall.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
Modern Adult Kicks. Obviously, we don't want to give too many spoilers or anything like that, but let's talk a little bit about this because it's definitely a passion project, and it coming out of the COVID years. You know, this is that release finally.
Yeah, I'm sure you talk to so many bands that are at this point of like, oh my God, we got this thing out.
Yeah,
Between the vinyl delays, having to work remotely, which we did, we split our time between our home studio in California and the LA Kitten Robot Records, where we would do all our vocals and other different tracking. And yeah, it was like it felt like 10 years, but it was 2 years. I keep telling people that. I'm like, how is it 2 years that we did this record? But yeah, Modern Adult Kicks is like our follow-up to Vintage Millennial, which I just only bring that up because like even the name Vintage Millennial to Modern Adult Kicks, I feel like it shows a maturity or
hmm
like a growing up. And let me tell you, 2020 and 2021 had us kicking and screaming into adulthood as a band because we're all adults in the band, obviously, but we're a very fun band. We're a very whimsical band. And the things that we went through as a band, both individually and together, were so hard and so shitty. And the whole world was so shitty at that time that, like, it really does come out in the music. However, like so many other bands that went through hard times during COVID, I feel like it's what the world needs now. Like, we all need to dance, but it also needs to be real. And there are
Right.
some real songs on here that are about battling with addiction. They're about codependency, difficult relationships. We have a song on here called California Sober, which is, do you know that term?
Yes. Yep.
There's this whole trend right now of like, I don't drink, but I do, psychedelic drugs and stuff, and that makes me zen. And it's like, and that I feel like has permeated our culture a bit. This sense of like, I'm mindful and therefore I'm zen, but really, are you mindful? Like, there's a lot of interesting stuff happening in our world that's very real. And I guess with this record, we were not intentionally or not, we were kind of straddling like this fun, whimsical crusher verse that like we created and like the real world, like smacking us in the face and being like, your ability to work is gone. Your ability to tour is gone. Reed sold his comic book shop before the pandemic so we could tour more.
Right.
Like our drummer got in a horrible skateboarding accident and could barely, I mean, he couldn't walk, he could much less drum. He managed to record some of the drums on this album with a torn knee. And it's like it all comes out in the music, and but it's all about joy too. Like it's about going through this together. And I feel like maybe I hate to say fans, but like our friends of the Crusherverse are like growing with us and growing up with us as vintage old millennials that we are, and early Gen Xers,
Yeah.
or even mid grumpy Gen Xers like Dr. Cain. Like maybe we're all going through this tumultuous time together and like coming out of it a little bit bruised, but like that's the beauty of it. We didn't look away. We were just like, this is the shit that's happening. And that's kind
Yeah.
of how I feel the album is. Like and I'll let you talk, but I have to say one more thing.
No, you're
It's
fine.
still, because I know I'm like talking a lot, but it's still to be seen whether this is the funny part. The way we do music is so joyful that I almost wonder if it'll come out and people will be like, that was fun. And like they won't get any of the subtext. So that could happen. And if that happens, I'm fine with that too.
Yeah. No, I agree, and I think for me, like that's one of the things I've gotten away from. I've done music journalism for almost 20 years now. And so like way back in the day when I didn't know any better as a young, 18, 19-year-old kid, I'm always like, well, what's this song about? Like what's the real story for this? And then like over the years I realized I'm taking away the connection that people are making with these songs. And I think that's what you're getting at is like if someone listens to this new album and they only see the joy in it, great, that's the connection you're making.
Mm-hmm.
But if you listen to it and you hear the heartache and the struggles and things like that and make a connection to your life, like that's even better because you're seeing what's really here.
Yeah. And you have to go both ways. I mean, I don't know any artist that's like, you must, well, I do actually. That sounds like a New York hardcore band or something. It's like, oh, our lyrics are literal. And if I don't smack them down your throat and you don't swallow them, then, it's like, come on. Like, it's all up for grabs and who knows. And who even knows what becomes popular or why. I swear it's just such a cosmic soup of like being in the right place, the right time. Are you hitting on something? And culturally, it's like at this point, it's been like maybe 6 years of this band where like there's so many songs that come out that you're like this won't be that popular, and it's like that's the one. Or
Right.
You know how it is. It's just like you really have to. I think in music you have to let go a lot, and like it's hard because so much of what musicians do is like control and manipulate a world and create a thing that you have full control over, and that's like such a fun thing to like get a boner over metaphysically. But then you also have to let it completely go and just be like, it's out there. And it's just, that's like the beauty of it though. That's the beauty of making all art is like, that really hard, intense, in a room working on something and then just like being like, okay, beautiful baby, goodbye. I hope that people like it. And if not, oh well,
Yeah.
you know?
Yeah. No, and I've talked to several artists about that exact subject where like, until a song gets released or a piece of art, whether it's a music video or, traditional art with paintings or whatever, like working on my art, it's mine. I can control it. I'm protecting it. Like I have full soul interest in it. But then the day comes that you go, "Hey world, look at this thing that I made." And it's kind of this weird catch 22 of like I'm really proud of this, but I'm also terrified that you're going to hate it. So like here it is, just be kind, I guess, and go away.
Yeah. I think one of the best things, I don't even know what celebrity said this. I think a lot of celebrities do say it, but it's like whatever the praise is, it has nothing to do with you. And whatever the shit is, it has nothing to do with you. And I feel like that's a really good way to look at the world in terms of like the stuff that's coming at you is mostly projections from what other people are seeing and feeling. And so even the good stuff, you should kind of be like, that's nice and not internalize it too much, because then who knows, you start writing something that's more similar to that vein, or you try to seek that dopamine from that source. And that's not art anymore. That's just social media,
Yeah.
where you're like, ooh, selfies get more likes. I'm going to do more selfies, and that's not content and art are two different things. I joke that they're the same thing because it's funny to me because it's like content creators, like
Right.
it's all content, but like art is not quantifiable in that way. It should not be quantifiable in that way. And I do worry about social media kind of turning our art into this quantifiable A/B testing. You can put it out there before it's really half baked and then see if people like it or not. And then who knows, maybe that was your first draft and people didn't like it. And it's like some of this stuff is really meant to be maybe more kept closer to the vest a little bit.
Yeah.
I've learned that being on the internet most of my life, that some stuff is meant to be held really close to the vest until you're ready to let it into the world. And it has wings and it can do its thing, you know?
Yeah, for sure. And I think, we're both in the MySpace generation. So, like, we're used to seeing from that aspect of stuff, like, bands all the time. You'd land on their page and it's like, oh, here's a 30-second clip of this new song. Like, people today think that that's a new thing with TikTok or whatever. And it's like, no, like, we all learned how to fucking code websites back in the day, all right? Like, we knew stuff.
HTML, baby.
Yeah.
Yeah, I knew a little bit of website stuff. I definitely had a website as a kid with like a message board that my friends would go on periodically. Well, I don't know how close the friends they were, but they would like periodically like put porn on it. So I'd be
Yeah.
like, this is my message board, guys. And they'd like make it all like terrible and graphic and stuff. And Yeah, I miss those days of the internet. Oh my gosh, MySpace, the hair, everything. I miss
Yeah,
it.
yeah. It was something. And
Yeah.
like to look back, obviously looking back, it's like, man, and I hate this word, but we were very cringy kids. Like looking back, we did stupid stuff. But for the time, I think it goes back into what we were saying earlier about punk rock. Like it was so counterculture because it was this new thing, this new way to interact with people. We could finally, it makes us sound old, but that was the birth of the internet for a lot of us where we were going, I can talk to somebody that's in fucking Japan. Like, how's this
Yeah.
a real thing?
And LimeWire. Like
Yeah.
I was down, I had a whole computer. Shout out to my dad, who's a computer guy. He gave me like a whole, like, because he gets these old computers that are like old dinosaurs from his work. And so he gave me one that was just LimeWire. And I was just like, ooh, just like downloading so much weird British punk and oi and stuff and street punk. But I do want to say, like, I think everybody's autobiography in any era is literally, we were really cringy kids, and the subtitle is, and we did really stupid stuff. Because
Yeah.
if you look back, like look back into the annals of history or whatever, and you see that every generation is cringy. My mom always used to say growing up that every generation thinks that they invented sex, and every generation thinks they invented embarrassment. It's like, it's kind of true, because you could totally
Yeah.
look back at the 80s and be like, wow, that was a lot of cocaine, shoulder pads, and like new wave. Like, what the fuck was that? And
Yeah.
like, at least they don't have like the pictures burned into our retinas forever because of the internet. But like, I'm just saying that to give us more grace, to say like, yeah,
Yeah.
it was cringy and we did really stupid things, but I guarantee you that kids will be doing really stupid things until this planet dies from the oceans rising and the
Yeah.
temperature increasing. So
Yeah, for sure. Well, and I think, if anybody needs proof of that, just hop on TikTok for more than 5 minutes and you'll see that that's
I
exactly what's
won't do
there.
it. It's funny. Like, I was on TikTok for like 2 seconds and I recognized in myself, I was like, nope, this ain't gonna work for me because I'm gonna get hooked on this. I need to stop. So
Yeah,
I don't even have TikTok anymore. So I've just
yeah.
like cut it out.
It's a safe bet. It's a safe bet. Um, so let's talk a little bit about one of the things that I love talking about when someone has a new piece of art coming out, a new album, and things like that is I don't think casual listeners know enough about the process of like selecting singles and things like that because it's this weird mindset, right? Where it's like, well, I think this one's going to be popular, but I maybe care about this other one a little bit more, or I think this one has the potential to reach this demographic, and that's really popping off right now. So like for you guys, as you're coming up on the release of this album, you've already dropped a few singles.
Yeah.
What's been kind of that mindset for you in that selection process?
Oh, you're gonna peel back the
A
curtain.
little bit, just a little bit.
I'm all for it. I think it's important that I like to peel it back too for other bands. I always wish other bands would talk about stuff like this, because you do find yourself in a closet just like, is this the song? Is this good? Is all of this bad? Is any of this good? Because the idea of picking one or two or three, or like we did four, holy shit. Because we did kind of do our progression of our album from 2021 into 2022 because of the vinyl shortages and all that. We were like, okay, the first song is going to be She Drives, or no, it was Cul-de-sac, which is like a really creepy, dark song about suburban isolation, perfect for the lockdown times. And it's kind of a little bit inspired by the Stepford Wives by
Hmm.
Ira Levin or Levin, I don't know how you say his name. But the thing was, we were very self-conscious, or conscious, I should say, of the fact that we had really upgraded in terms of our sound, because that was one of the songs that we had recorded partly at Kitten Robot Studios in LA with Paul Rossler, who was like, I have to, just as an aside, LA punk icon from the Screamers, worked with
Yeah.
with TSOL and Josie Cotton and so many legends, and it's just such a he's a real deal, and he has a very interesting mind. He's very good at what he does. And so the fact that he was part of that, and he brought keys on and a little bit of backing vocals on, he really helped us layer the song and bring in like the lushness. I was like, oh shit. So the second single has to be a punk single. Or no, this is why the third single was a punk single, because the second single was more of like a fun, upbeat, like road trip jam. It
Right.
was still pretty lush and pretty. So yeah, the third one we're like, we got to make sure people know that, you know, this song is like a big kiss to our East, you know, to Reed's kind of East Bay punk, like 90s, like gritty kind of scene that he really likes. And we both are inspired by. And so like and without getting like into it too much into the nitty gritty weeds, I think you're right that every artist is trying to like get as many people as possible interested without alienating everybody around them. And we're
Right.
this little punk band that has this reputation for being kind of like a little imperfect and kind of shabby around the edges a little, like, and just being kind of like a rock and roll band and a garage band kind of, which is like our charm. And then going into like this very professional studio that has beautiful equipment and is a little bit more high caliber than what we're used to. We were very conscious of that and being like, well, how do we show people that we're still punk rockers? We still want to have a good time. And Click and Act Now was like our punk anthem that we just like threw out there, like, you know, we don't even care if no one likes this. We
Right.
just want people to know we're still a punk band. But our latest single is Taboo, and that just came out like, yes, 2 days ago. And that is a very 80s pop rock, almost like Pat Benatar styled song that we just felt like was a real, like, I don't know, fist pumper. Like, that sounds really stupid, but just one of those songs that were like, hey, like, we think our audience is mostly punk dads and their daughters because we always see them at our shows. It's always like a punk dad with their cool daughter. So like that's a very punk dad, cool daughter song where like I could see the punk dad being into it because it's more like Joan Jetty, but then like the cool daughter's like, it's empowering and rock and roll and like subversive and kind of edgy. I like that, you know?
Yeah.
So, you know, there's so many thoughts that go into it. I'm not sure I answered your question, but we thought a
I,
lot about it.
yeah. No, I think that you did, and it shows the complexity of how that goes because it is
Yeah.
such a roller coaster of, and obviously with you guys being a 2/3 piece outfit, like it's a little more controlled. But when a band has 4, 5, 6, 7 members, like
Yeah.
everybody gets a vote, and now nobody can decide. Like it gets rough to say like this is what we want to do. And something I want to kind of reverse back on that you said, you talked about going into the studio with all this nice fancy, you know, the higher end equipment. Does it give you a little bit of almost like an imposter syndrome when that moment hits, like do we even deserve to be in this room right now?
Okay, well, this is kind of a cute story because I definitely felt that way until I saw there was an amp there that was owned by Paul Rossler's sister, Kira, who played in Black Flag. And that was the amp that she used in Black Flag.
Mm-hmm.
And for some people, that would make them freak out even more. But I was like, oh, yeah, Black Flag taught me that it's for everybody. So weirdly, somehow, like the mystical way of that studio, like I was like, oh my God, oh my God, oh my God. And then I was like, oh, wait, like this punk rock is from I can do it mentality. If I don't believe in myself and I don't sell what I'm trying to sell of myself, why is anyone else going to believe in me? And like, how, you know, how can you really be true to yourself? How can you really share a true product or true piece of art, I should say, more than product, if you don't believe in yourself? And so I was able to get through that pretty quickly. Also, just working with Paul, you know, I like to joke that he's a punk rock baby boomer because he was an original 77 punk rock dude in LA, but also he's of a different age group. He really is
Mm-hmm.
like a boomer age group. And like he has this swath of music knowledge that's like this big. And my music knowledge is like maybe here, and Reed's is like maybe here. And so working with someone like that, I think it's always nice to work with someone who's a little older, wiser, has sort of like a more aerial view of what you're doing so that they can look at what you're doing and be like, hey, I could see you got strengths here, but you also have weaknesses. For instance, I had a really, really hard time singing from my diaphragm and breathing while I was singing. He noticed and he called it out immediately. He's like, it's really weird. Like you're kind of like gasping for air at weird points. And I had never had anyone tell me that. It would have been very scary and it would have given me imposter syndrome if he hadn't been like, you know, that's totally fixable. You're going to grow through this. And throughout, you know, many of the songs on this album, actually, he was like, Hayley, you're really improving on your breathing. Yeah, you're doing pretty good. You know, like he was
Yeah.
helping me through it. And I feel like working with someone like that, you will never truly feel like that much of an imposter, because not it kind of just shows we all have these weaknesses, and none of us are these, like, even Kurt Cobain did not come out of the womb with a perfect, poetry and hair, messy hair. Like,
Yeah.
he had so many people and the situations around him that made him who he was, that I really worked past that. But I do think for all women, I should just say, to get it out there, it's like, I'm not saying it's not a thing, especially for women, especially if you're the only woman on a bill, the only woman on a tour, whatever it is. If just maybe there's more women around, but not as many as you'd want, it
Right.
can definitely feel that way a little bit. And that's valid. And like, if you feel that way out there and that is something you're dealing with, like, that's 100% valid. Just recognize it for what it is. Be like, that's my little devil on my shoulder telling me I'm not good enough. Let it be there, but just don't let it run your entire show. Just let it be there and just be like, okay, cool.
Yeah.
Because we all have it. I certainly do have it. But in the studio, it wasn't as bad as I thought it would be.
Yeah. No, it's always interesting, I think for a band on the come up like you are, and then start, like you've mentioned, working with Paul and some of these people that have done it for so long and
Right.
done it at a level that is what you're striving to get to as well. So like to have that type of thing, it's very easy to get in your head and go, but why me? Like why am
Yeah.
I the one here? So it's cool though that you're able to also spin that and go, well, A, punk rock is for everyone,
Yeah.
and B, it it's a chance to learn, and they didn't, you know, I'm sure Paul would
There was no
say,
roadmap.
yeah. Well, no, I was gonna say, I'm sure Paul would say, like when they started out, they weren't good. You know what I mean? Like
Yeah.
everybody has to grow through these things.
Absolutely. Absolutely. And I think it's just, yeah, just knowing that and being okay with it. But also there's a sense of like, when you're stepping into the right growth, because you'll
Hmm.
feel a little scared, but you'll also feel excited, and you'll also feel like you can do it. Like there's definitely jumps that bands take that maybe in the 90s, for instance, like when the major labels were just pulling bands from the depths of like the underground into Spin Magazine and Rolling Stone, and I can't imagine what those kind of bands went through. I feel like now these days, the steps that bands are taking are more manageable, because you're
Hmm.
going from like maybe a smaller DIY label like we did, like Eccentric Pop, which we love, to like a medium, more connected one that's more, professional in certain ways and not in others. And so you kind of, I don't know. I feel like that we have it better these days, because I don't know any band at all that's like, man, I really hope a label guy's in the audience tonight and they're going to sign me to their big cool record label, because
Right.
we all know it's not a thing. So it almost kind of takes the pressure off, to where I just can't even imagine the bands that were like maybe in the Bay Area in the 90s and saw Green Day get pulled up into the
Yeah.
CEO suite and be like, oh my God, that's possible. Like that to me feels like, oh my God, that would be imposter syndrome. you
Yeah.
know?
Yeah.
Um, yeah, I'm glad. I like, a lot of people would say, oh, the music industry is broken, but like, I like where we're at. I like that the internet allows us to have sort of a egalitarian playing field a little bit, and like interact with our fans more and just be like, oh, do you like this? Cool. Like we like each other. Great. We're friends now. I think that's nice. Like, I don't mind the way that the music industry has gone.
Y-
Um,
Yeah. No, I would agree. I think the thing is, for so long, until the age of the internet, really, the music industry was so reactive to everything. There was no proactive steps being taken to like revolutionize anything. And now the internet came out, and it was like, oh, we have this potential. Again, like back in the 80s and before, like if you want to get played in Japan, it's going to be hard to get your music over there. You have to find connections, and there's a big long ass process. And now it's okay, I clicked the button and it uploaded to the internet, and now it exists everywhere, so I'm okay.
yeah.
Like I
And
can go there.
if I want to go to Japan, which I do one day, it's like I could literally find friends there, book a tour, crash on people's couches, all from the internet. That's really cool. I think there's so many people that are just so negative on the internet and how it's made art and music free, that it's just a different ball game entirely. And you have to look at some of the positives too, as a young band, or not a young band, but just as a baby band, DIY band, I don't know, however you want to say it. a band that relies on those tools to like get the word out, you know.
Yeah.
I mean, I do have a good team though. Kitten Robot Records has a wonderful press team, Ray B out of New
Hmm.
York, and they're really cool. It's a very, very small group. It's helmed by Ray, who is an ex-goth and music journalist who you would probably really like. And he knows bands intimately, he knows musicians intimately, he cares. And
Yeah.
so there's just a lot of I feel like there's a lot of medium-sized labels and medium-sized press and just a lot of mediums out there in the industry now.
Hmm.
It's not like this like David and Goliath anymore. And
Yeah.
I'm cool with that. Like I just want to be playing 300 people rooms. Like that'd be great. Like just, eating delicious food, traveling the country. Like that's what I want.
Yeah.
I certainly don't want to be playing like an arena show. That sounds horrifying to me. And also like I've never even been to an arena show. It seems like it would be horrible. Like,
Yeah.
ugh, I don't want to do that.
it, it's counter punk rock, right? Like now you're too big, and now it doesn't feel punk rock anymore. But since we're going to talk about Ray for a minute here, I've actually known Ray for quite a long time. He's actually one of the people that got me into the music journalism side of it. So,
Yes.
big fan of Ray, and like for anyone that doesn't realize he's so much bigger than he'll even admit. You know
Oh
what I
yeah.
mean? Like he's done so he worked with fucking Britney Spears during the Baby One More Time
Oh
cycle. Like
yes. And I have
what
yeah.
the fuck?
So when we were in New York over the fall, we met him in person for the first time. And one of the things I'll take away from that conversation, and I had to get this out of him, like you said, like he doesn't talk about it. I had to like squeeze it out of him because he was talking about being working with Britney during Baby One More Time. And I was like, oh my God, when that magazine cover came out and she's laying on the bed with the Furby, I was like, you have no idea. That was like my Marilyn Monroe. Like I couldn't believe it. And I loved her at the time. I went and saw
Hmm.
her at the fair and he was like, oh yeah, he was like, I was the one who was like, involved. I was involved with that shoot, and there was a lot of talk about whether the Furby should be in it or not. And I was like, "You were involved in that?" Like for
Yep.
some reason that was like a thing I fixated on. I was so excited. And then he was talking about how he was involved with Spice Girls, and he
Hmm.
actually sent me the Spice Girls. I think it's 20th or 30th anniversary, like picture disc. He sent
Yep.
it like with a note, "Spice up your life." Because during that whole conversation, we're just drinking drinks and
Right.
whatever schmoozing, and I was like, I don't want anyone to ever really know this about me, but like, all I ever want to be is a Spice Girl. And he just not only did he agree, but he like embraced it and he was like, I'm gonna level it up one and send you like the Spice Girls cassette and the picture disc. And I was just like, Ray, like this is a really good person.
Yeah. Yeah. And that's the thing with him. Like he was legitimately one of the very first PR people to give me a chance. So like I'm forever in his debt. Like I said, here I am 20 years later still doing this, and like it's been that relationship. He and I are friends on Facebook, and we'll message each other from time to time, and we've both been through different tragedies in our lives and been able to reach out to each other and whatnot. And like the thing with Ray is, like I said, he's so humble, whether it's about his professional career or his personality, and he is one of the kindest, most beautiful human beings on this planet.
And what a wonderful example of how to be in the music industry. Because we
Yes.
all know people that aren't like that. So it's like people out there, you might not know him, but you know someone like him, whether it's a sound person, whether it's someone who runs a label like Josie Cotton, who's a wonderful human being as well and is just so generous, whether it's like the person who's working the door at the show, there's always going to be somebody involved who's really that. And you should thank them and like know that like those are the people that make a scene awesome. Those are the
Hmm.
people. It's not the people that are the pretty people that are the rock stars. No offense, Ray, you're beautiful, but like like it's not all about like the lead person. you
Yep.
know, I do understand and believe that, and I do consider myself a bit of a introvert. Which nobody will believe me, but I do. It's all the people behind the scenes. It's people like you. It's music journalists. It's writers. Without you guys, we're just like sitting here, like I guess my shit's out. like
Right.
we
Yeah.
need
No.
you. We need you.
And it feels good to hear that. The journalism side is sometimes the thankless job because they're just doing their job, and we are, but there's a certain level of integrity and passion that goes into this side of it too. Like we care about making the music scene better and want to see everybody thrive. And I think that's the thing is, like you said, it's actually why You Make the Scene exists, um, or the name is what it is. It's everybody within that music scene that makes that scene something. It doesn't matter if it's the merch guy, the fucking janitor after the show cleaning up the arena. Like, these are all people that contribute to this music scene, and we all have the potential to make the scene better.
And I didn't even realize that I was literally talking about the name. It's like the name of the
Yeah.
podcast. I was in journalism for about 10 years. Actually, I went to school for print journalism, and I still write for Bust magazine. And I pretty much only write for Bust whenever it's a band that I really want to help support, and I feel like, okay, I really want to like give them a leg up.
Yeah.
And it's not that I don't want to give everyone a leg up. It's more just like, yeah, that is the piece of my life that is still geared towards uplifting and being like, let's find out everything we can about this artist and show the world that they're amazing. And like, I have that in me. I never want to lose that. And I think that that's important. And a lot of bands do kind of miss out on that when they make it all about them and they don't focus on like, well, what about the people adjacent? Because there's always people above and below
Right.
in terms of like where you are in the world. But there's all these people adjacent to you that are, these are your little brothers. These are your brothers and sisters in the scene, or they and them's in the scene, who are all on the same plane, and they could all use like a hand. And
Yeah.
it's important not to just look like, well, they're so far ahead and they're so much below. It's like, no, that's not it. It's like, who's around me right now? Who can I surround myself with that needs the fellowship, that needs community, that needs to feel like, okay, their music matters. Maybe I'll reach out to them and tell them how much I love their song or their album, what it meant to me. It's so important. And the outlets like what you're doing now totally provide that as well. It's like a validation and like a bouncing off of like, I don't know, you're just reflecting the art back. And I think that's so important. If you don't have that, there's nothing there. Like you're just screaming into the void and nobody
Right.
wants that.
No, and I talk a lot about, like you said, the people adjacent to you, the networking arms that you need to reach out for, not for necessarily just your personal gain. Like, obviously we all have dream, everybody wants to be a millionaire, but like, you never know who those connections are going to be. I talk a lot about Ali Hagendorf, who works for Spotify now, but when she started in music journalism, she was quote unquote a nobody. She was just like anybody else, writing for magazines and things like that, websites and everything. And now she's the head of, I'll get her exact job title here. She is the global head of rock for Spotify. So like,
Wow.
yeah, so to see her move up that chain, and now she has, not necessarily in a movie villain mindset here. She has this influence though that if she made a connection with someone 10, 15. I lost you for a second when you
Yeah.
plugged in.
Sorry. I was running out of juice. I was like, oh God.
Yeah, no, you're all good.
No, I want her number. Can I have her number? No, I'm kidding.
If I had her number, I need to get her on the podcast.
Yeah, that's a really good point because it's just, and like you're saying, it's like, it's not that you never know who you could gain from. That's a horrible way to think about it. But it's more like the people that are doing it and succeeding and are feeling fulfilled in their careers are people that are helping each other out, who are getting help from others. Nobody's an island. No one's doing this themselves. Absolutely nobody is making it on their own. It's a huge network. And it's that like, who did you smile at? Who did you help? Who did you thank? Who did you give a leg up when it meant nothing, when it meant no money for you, it meant nothing. It just meant being a good person. And I think that's what you're saying, right?
Yeah, exactly. And I recently lost one of the best bosses I've ever had to a sudden heart attack, but something that he and I had talked about a lot is, kind of his belief system is the same as mine as far as, if you take care of people, people will take care of you. And the music industry is a perfect example of that. If you're good to the bands around you, they're going to call you to come out on tour with them because they know that you're going to help out or whatever. If you're taking care of the fans, they're going to support you. And taking care of someone, like you just said, could be as simple as smiling at somebody, asking them how their day was, and meaning it, because you never know what somebody else is going through at that moment.
100%. First of all, I'm sorry for your loss. That's really devastating, but it's really beautiful that that's what you took away from your experience with this person, because this really may be the secret to happiness is
Right.
getting out of your own ass.
Yeah.
And what is an asshole? An asshole is someone who's in their own ass. And so any chance you can get to get out of it, which, hey, I'm in my own ass all the time. I'm a human. Anytime you can get out of it is so good. And I think
Yeah.
there's nothing like going to like a punk show, honestly, to get you out of your own ass, because you're going to see every walk of life there. You're going to fall down. You're going to get helped up. You're going to help someone else up. You might get punched a little bit. You might punch someone else. No. You might, you're just going to go through the whole range of human experiences. There's a lot of opportunities to like ricochet off each other, which I think is crucial to a happy life. Like, we live in a world where everybody's sort of separate and in their own little realms. And like, yeah, that's part of what I like about living in Detroit. I cannot go outside of my house without ricocheting off another culture, another race, another way of thinking, another kind of band that like is totally different than us, but just amazing. And just being open to like ricocheting. I don't know. That's like the word that keeps coming up in my brain, but
Yeah.
it's important.
Yeah, I totally agree, and I think that's a really good segue to speaking of getting out to some punk rock shows and whatnot. You guys are getting ready to head out on tour here in a give or take a month.
Yeah.
So let's talk a little bit about this. You've got the Modern Adult Kicks tour kicking off on September 23rd up in Fort Wayne. Obviously there's excitement.
Yeah.
What's this feel like coming out, in support of this new art baby of an album?
Art baby. Well, thank you for asking. I'm just really excited. We just moved from California, and that was 4 months ago. And the minute we moved here, we went on a 2-week Midwest tour, and then we bought a house, and then we started restoring it, and then we started finding other honorary crushers to join us for this tour. So it feels like we've hit the ground running, and we have, as usual, combined our powers to find some honorary crushers to help join us on this tour. It's going to be a 4-piece this time. The 4-piece is something that only LA audiences, I think, I've only experienced. We've had a lead guitar player in LA that we just love bringing on another element to add more of those counter melodies and
Yeah.
just make it so I can be more like Alan Jackson and just play two. Now kidding. So we have a 4-piece, and we're going all over the Midwest, and we might go to Nashville. We're not still on scene on whether that's going to work out, but we'll be in LA for a little bit, San Diego. And we're just excited to get out and share like a couple of these newer songs that, we've been working with the same set list for a while. Our last album came out in 2020, and we've heard several people tell us, oh, you guys don't play Jacaranda. Oh, you don't play Church of Flag. And we started listening more. So I hope that audiences will just kind of feel like we listened and we give a shit and we really tried.
Yeah.
If anything, if you go home, I hope you just say those crushers really tried, because we are really trying to put together like a really energetic and just a level up kind of show. Like we really are. And Dr. Cain will still be causing commotion and fights and encouraging people to get into a fight for a free t-shirt and offering free kidney punches as usual. But we'll have a new record. So if anything, come get the new record.
Yeah. Yeah, no, and I love that. The chaos that is punk rock, it's funny too that it comes from your husband slash bassist, because like I used to play bass guitar in high school, and bass guitarists are almost as bad as drummers for getting a bad rap, like the drummer just gets forgotten about entirely. But a bassist, everybody's like, oh, he just stands off on the side. He doesn't do anything. Like, if it wasn't for the bass line, all right, let me tell you how terrible music would be.
Yeah, especially if you like Lookout Records, pop punk, or reggae. Like, come on, we need bass. But yeah, he's an agent of chaos. He really is. He's an evil villain, and he makes our shows interesting and fun, that's for sure. So no matter what, you're gonna definitely get some in-your-face Dr. Cain action. He does this thing lately where he goes up to someone and he just like starts playing really hard in their face. And I don't know, I've seen it go sideways a few times.
Okay.
But you could be that person. You could be that person that he just plays really hard in your face, and you have to stand there and be like, I am enjoying this.
I
That could be
think.
you.
Yeah, that's awesome. Um, so running from September 23rd all the way till November 26th. Obviously, there's dates off and a couple weeks
Yeah.
off there at the mid October to November area. But um, so I guess my point there was it's not necessarily a small run. Like there's opportunity for people to get out
Yeah.
and do this. Especially, I'll probably be. I already talked to the team. I'm probably going to be at the Indianapolis one at the Melody Inn.
Awesome.
So that's on the 24th for anyone listening to this that wants to show up as well. It'd be really
Punk rock
cool to have.
night.
Yeah, let's have like flash mob type thing happen here. So I think to kind of transition to the end here. The this I haven't seen the track listing or anything. One of the questions I've adopted that I really like is when somebody's releasing a new album, it's a two-part question, and that is what song do you think people are going to gravitate to, and what song do you want them to gravitate to?
Oh God. You're really peeling back the layers here. Um, well, I'll just go with what I originally thought because it's already shaking shape, okay? I already know the answer to this question. We wanted it to be Taboo, which is the first song off of the new album. It's our latest single, and I think people do like it a lot. But the one that's getting the most traction in terms of like people who have heard early listenings of it is actually a cover song of a very obscure um, power pop band from the 70s called The Shivers out of Milwaukee that we did. And a lot of people are like, I really like that cover. And I'm like, well, they don't say cover, they just say they like the song. And I'm like,
Right.
oh, and every musician knows whenever you get that compliment that's like, man, I love all your shit, but I really like X, Y, and Z, and it's the cover song. It's just
Yeah.
always like that. I think people are really gravitating towards that cover. And for anyone who doesn't know The Shivers, you will absolutely after you listen to our record because you're going to fall in love with the song and you're going to want to listen to all their music, and their music is really amazing. So that's the answer to that. But like I said before, I don't really even care. I don't care
Yeah.
anymore. I just hope that people like give it a spin. And I mean, it's a beautiful record. It's like this beautiful blue color. Please don't leave it in the jacket. The things in the world are meant to be used up. Like use the
Yes.
toothpaste, use the good wine, use the good china, spin the record, spin the colored vinyl. So I just hope that it sees like the light of day. That's all I
Yeah.
care about.
Yeah. Awesome. Obviously, I'll link all of your socials and everything, but where
Thank
can
you.
people find you guys online? What's the best way to interact with you?
We're on Instagram quite a bit. So Hayley and the Crushers on Instagram. We also have a newsletter and a Substack. And the Substack is an audio gift that I give out free once a week. I talk about Dr. Cain and my life and what we're going through. And I try to connect it usually to some sort of like helpful scrap of something that's helpful to creatives or just
Yeah.
is uplifting. So that's kind of a fun little free Substack if you want to find that. That's called Crusher Talk. If you want to get on my newsletter, just go to my website, which is Hayley and the Crushers website. And that's also just a good place to go just go to the site and you'll see like there's a newsletter sign up. And you'll see like our socials and stuff. So you can just get everything from there. But we're also on YouTube. So our new video is out. And yeah, we're not on TikTok. So just don't ever try to find us on TikTok.
Awesome. Awesome. That's everything I've got for you on this conversation. I'm sure we're going to have more in the future. And like I said, I'm like 98% sure I'm going to be at that Melody End show. So again, I appreciate your time. Definitely looking forward to the new album and seeing you guys out on the road.
Thank you so much, Josh. I really appreciate it. And it was a pleasure. So let me know if I can send you a record. I want
Yeah,
to.
absolutely. We'll definitely connect.
Okay.
Awesome. Thank you so much.
Toodaloo.
See ya.
Bye.